So here's what you're going to see tonight, or if you're watching this later, whenever you're watching this. We are going to have for you a conversation with David Amito, who plays John the Baptist. He's going to talk about this episode. He's going to talk about being cast in this role. And did you know, some of you may have known this, but you might not, which is that David Amito, who plays John the Baptist, was originally going to be cast as Matthew. Isn't that weird? It's kind of weird to think of it now, but there was a time when we had settled on casting David as Matthew, and then we changed our minds. And David knows that, so we'll talk about that tonight. Then we've got mega country superstar, country megastar, Thomas Rhett Atkins. Yes, he's a chosen superfan. I'm going to talk to him. We have a great conversation about the show, what he thought of the episode. And if you're a Thomas Rhett fan, you're going to love it. And even if you aren't a Thomas Rhett fan or you don't know much about him, you're going to love him. He's great and big chosen superfan, so you're going to appreciate that. We also have a live stream only discount. Okay, so this piece is, if you're watching this later, unfortunately this won't apply anymore, the discount, but we have a discount for you that's just for this live stream for these 24 hours, for all of our merch, all of our gifts. I don't want to say merch anymore, it's not merch, it's gifts at www.thechosengifts.com. And I'll give that to you in just a second. And then we've also got a sneak peek of episode 6. You're going to pick up right where episode 5 left off, and you're going to get a little sneak peek, a little mini trailer that's going to give you some ideas of where we're going with this story and what you might see in episode 6. So you're going to want to stick around for all of that. So, discount. Let's give that to you right now. Thank you for being patient during this live stream, and I hope you didn't try to go in the middle of the episode to thechosengifts.com because you wouldn't have gotten the discount. So, 11% off everything in the store. Okay, everything at thechosengifts.com is going to be 11% off, but you need this discount code. It's along the bottom of your screen. It's Zealot. Why 11% off? Well, because Simon the Zealot is now, or as John the Baptist calls him, Zealot. There are now 11 disciples. So I thought that'd be a nice little discount number. 11% off everything. So if you're out of the States, if you're outside the United States, I'm sorry, you're not going to get the discount. I guess you could get the discount if you wanted to pay for all the shipping. The shipping's really expensive outside the United States, but you just email if you want that. However, we are working on international shipping. I promise you we will get there eventually. But right now, 11% off when you check out. So go ahead and get whatever you want. And then in the checkout, you will type in Zealot, Z-E-A-L-O-T. In the checkout, again, it's along the bottom of your screen at thechosengifts.com, and everything is 11% off. You can do that right now if you want, or you can write it down, and you'll have 24 hours, or whenever you're watching this. Just keep in mind, this originally is airing, because right now it's Sunday night, and so by Monday night it'll be gone. But you can still get it in these next 24 hours. So, when you go to thechosengifts.com and get 11% off, I want to give you a very, very quick rundown of what we've got. So you've got, of course, all the clothing, so including like this hoodie, and it's also in t-shirt form, the come and see thing. But I'm going to make this very fast, I promise. This is the first chosen devotional, okay, and this is the second chosen devotional, book 2. And these are both called 40 Days with Jesus, book 1 and book 2. This is from season 1, this is from season 2. And these are for anyone who wants to get a little bit deeper into the show, stories from the Gospels, the scenes from the show, but it's in devotional form. So each day is like just a couple pages, and there's a prayer prompt, and it's more for personal. It's like this is for your own personal time. And these are the first things that came out that we released, and they are huge sellers. People have really been impacted by this, and I really think you're going to love it. And if you're a little bit new to the faith too, if maybe you're not a Bible expert, these will be beneficial to you as well. They're written in that style, but anyone can appreciate them. This goes even deeper. So this is our Bible study. This is we call it our interactive Bible study. This is called What Does It Mean to Be Chosen? Extraordinary. And this is for groups or individuals, but it's great for a small group study. It'll take you far deeper into the stories. It connects you through the Old Testament, like Isaiah 43, which is kind of a theme of season 1. But that's our season 1 interactive Bible study. What does it mean to be chosen? And it's one of the, it's truly one of my favorite items, but all these items are really special, and a lot of time was put into each and every one of them. We don't want to just give you stuff and offer stuff that's random just because we want to make money. We are getting offers from tons and tons of people for lots of different products. And we could just, if we wanted to, we could just release a lot of cheap products and they could probably sell because The Chosen is growing in popularity. But we want everything to be meaningful. If you're going to contribute your loaves and fish to this project, then we want you to get something in return that's going to impact your life. So this, of course, is the special edition DVD or Blu-ray. I'm telling you, we put like half a year into this thing. so many extras, so many things that are going to take you deeper into the show, behind the scenes, deeper into scripture, deeper into the stories. Telling you it's a collector's item, it's significant, you got to get it. And The Chosen novel, my dad, the author of the Left Behind books, Jerry Jenkins, wrote this. Season 1, I Have Called You by Name, based on Season 1. The novelization gives you even deeper because you can get into the characters' thoughts, you can get into some more of their backstories we couldn't get into the show. And the children's book, Jesus Loves Little Children, based on episode 3, written by my wife, based on my script for episode 3, our script for episode 3, illustrated by Kristen Hendricks, who is the co-author also of the devotional book. It's this is something. So, like, I'll just open it to one page, you get to see. So it's great. And all of that stuff, 11% off at thechosengifts.com. If you're watching this later, you're not going to get the discount with discount code Zealot, but you can still get all this stuff. It's still great. And here's why we do it. Because when you purchase something at thechosengifts.com as a gift for yourself or for others, it's not just money that goes into our pockets. This goes into the future. This goes into episodes and seasons. This allows us to do these live streams. This allows us to have the equipment. This allows us to hire staff. This is how we finance this whole production and all of our social media. The fact that all of our social media is free, the fact that the app is free, all of those things happen because of things like this, because of these gifts. And so it is kind of a family relationship. Like, you're keeping us going, literally. We don't have a big studio or TV network to write a big check to keep us alive. We just rely solely on you. And so our goal of reaching 1 billion people around the world, and our goal of financing the next 5 seasons at $100 million, big goal, is literally executed, for lack of a better term, by this. Real quick, before we get into my interview, my conversation with David Amito, this is, I want to read this fast, but I also I want you to hear this. This is from 2 different notes, both small, and they kind of represent the range of impact that you have on this, on people around the world because of this show and what you do. This first one is from a woman named Megan. She said, "My 6-year-old daughter prayed before bed tonight. In her prayer, she said watching The Chosen helped her understand that Jesus actually did amazing miracles, like heal the man's legs so he can walk. She said she couldn't connect the Bible to real life until seeing this episode. Seeing my 6-year-old have an epiphany with the Holy Spirit is the best thing I could ever feel. Wow, this show. Keep doing kingdom work. Thank you." So that's a 6-year-old who's kind of living out now our goal of reaching, of introducing the authentic Jesus to 1 billion people around the world. Whatever you lie on the belief spectrum, even if you're not a non-believer, just knowing Jesus better through this show is a good thing. If you are a believer, if you want to go deeper, that's what this show is for. And then there's this from this woman named Jennifer. She said, "Dallas, my whole family loves The Chosen, but I'm amazed at the effect it has on my mom. She has advanced Alzheimer's and can't follow much of anything most of the time. But she perks right up and stays engaged for a whole episode of The Chosen. Her mind is much more clear after watching." That's awesome. And she routinely asks out of nowhere whether we've seen all that's out or if a new episode is coming soon. That's just tremendous. Look at the range from a 6-year-old to an older woman with Alzheimer's. That's the impact that you're having. All right, let's get right into our conversation. I'm going to be honest with you. This is not live. I actually did this a little bit earlier with David because I just didn't want to mess with anything. I didn't want any technical glitches. And so we just pre-recorded this interview, my interview with David. And as John the Baptist, he's going to talk a little bit about being cast as John, the scene that you just saw, and the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, he was originally going to be cast as Matthew. So check out this conversation with David Amito. I think you're going to love it. All righty, David, you are here. And I got to tell you, most people, I wouldn't say all, but most people look at you as Creepy John. And there's actually some debate. There's a lot of people who are quite defensive of your character who really get offended when you're called Creepy John. They sometimes are like, why does the show treat him so disrespectfully? We try to explain the difference between the show and Simon's character. But I'm just curious, just before, I've got a couple other questions, but first and foremost, what are your thoughts on John the Baptist and the fact that Simon calls him Creepy John? Because we kind of portray John as a little bit outside the system, a little bit rebellious, a little bit radical. Do you feel that same sense of protectiveness when you hear Creepy John, or is it the kind of thing that you embrace?
I think, um, I mean, how I approached John the Baptist to begin with was a character who's very much in his own reality and has his own relationship to the world and his own relationship to the community and his own relationship to God. And I don't know, I don't think creepy affects him the same way as
Right.
maybe it, being called creepy would affect, like David, for example,
Right.
like I would not want to be called creepy. That would be a big insult. But I think for John, he's kind of floats above it
Right.
in this way that I really enjoy, and I really enjoy about the character. And he's more concerned, I think, with his relationship between him and God
Right.
than with him and how his fellow man might perceive him.
Right.
That's kind of how I internalize the character. So
Yeah.
it never really felt like an offense.
Right. Right.
And Shachar's character is so he just is the way he is. And I feel like John also has a sense of people to a certain extent where he knows kind of where he's coming from, not to take offense because of it,
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out of the way because you have a lot of fans, a lot of people love your character, a lot of people love your performance, and I think they're going to love
Oh,
you even
awesome.
more after this episode 5. And I wanted to kind of reassure them that we believe that John is cool with it, that he's not offended, that he doesn't take himself too seriously.
Right.
So let's get right into episode
Definitely.
5
Definitely.
because I remember after when you and I said goodbye when we filmed your final scene, the last scene that we filmed together for this season was the demoniac and that whole fight and introducing to Simon the Zealot. And so when we wrapped, you said to me that scene we filmed at the lake or the pond was one of the most meaningful or impactful scenes that you filmed, or one of the best times you've had filming that. I know it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole season. What about that really stood out to you? And just as an actor coming to a scene like that, where you're portraying one of the most famous people in history, having a conversation with the most famous person in history, with Jonathan Rumi, who, as you know, is no secret, is an incredible scene partner. What about that scene?
Yeah.
Just kind of take us through that as the actor.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's like a cocktail of things. Like it's Jonathan is a very supportive actor. We got together beforehand, and we really, we talked about the scene, but we also really got to know each other in a deeper way. And I think that Jonathan has a pretty remarkable ability to get a little deeper, even in a short amount of time that you spend with him, than the average scene partner that I have. And I think for the scene, you also allowed, as a director, allowed for the space to kind of have like a reverent space for us to work in. We were allowed silences. We were allowed to discover the piece, and you were very encouraging of finding a very organic place to work from, which is an actor's dream. But on top of it all, we had a lot of logistical situations there with like light and then like the sound. And there's a level of like exhaustion that comes from doing all that and frustration. And I feel like it's kind of like a marathon, how you like pass that hump where now you're like, you're sailing. And I think that you can do a scene so much that you become exhausted from it, that you kind of lose your mind a little bit. And then once you lose your mind, you're just kind of reacting. You're in the scene. You're not thinking anymore. And it's kind of like a magical kind of thing just occurs. And I think we were lucky to have encountered that when we were shooting that scene, because, yeah, I mean, right when the shot that I think that you ended up going with, like the light like hit like perfectly. The sound had quietened down, the wind stopped, and everything kind of came together in this like kind of perfect way after a series of total imperfections. And it was just really nice to have gotten there, and we were all very collaborative. So I think that was a very roundabout way of saying, we were collaborative and we worked until we got it. And because of it, it's a magical scene.
Yeah, I think that scenes like that, where it's just two people talking, in my opinion, those scenes require even more attention, not because they're supposed to be logistically easy. I mean, you don't have to walk around. You guys are just sitting down. You're just talking. But then that means that the scene, if it's not done right, could be boring, or it could feel rote. And I felt as a director, I felt a lot of pressure to get that scene right for two reasons. One, I felt like this is a scene that it's never been captured before. It's not in the Bible. It's not like people have wondered kind of what John and Jesus's relationship was like. It's never really been captured in this way. So I really wanted to get it right. But two, I just wanted it. You guys are so good. Like you're such a good actor and Jonathan's such a good actor. And the role that you play, you kind of come in occasionally, you come in, sprinkle fairy dust on the episode, and then you leave. And I just wanted to honor your talent, which brings me to the thing that you and I have talked about before, and a lot of people know this. You were originally going to be cast as Matthew. I mean, you auditioned for Matthew. You did a great job. It was settled, but there was something in my wife's mind and then ultimately mine where it was like something didn't feel right. And we thought, we don't really have anyone who really could do John the Baptist in the way we want to do him. And I feel like David's perfect for that. And Paris turned out to be great for Matthew. So the right choice was made. But I'm curious, your journey in that, like when I finally, because you auditioned, I believe, I don't remember if it was twice, but I know you auditioned for Matthew and we went through a lot of different takes. We were finding the whole autism angle. And then when we finally let you know you've been cast as John the Baptist, was that a disappointment to you, or was that kind of like, oh, this is cool, this will be an interesting way to dive in as well?
I knew more about John the Baptist than I knew about Matthew before getting the audition, so it was kind of fun to get such a character. But also, it's like there's a certain trust with the director and the casting director that when they see you for a particular role, that you can kind of let go and just trust that you're right for that role, and then you can kind of let go in it. And when a director stresses as much as you do to get the scenes right, it's a relaxing feeling for us actors because we know someone is taking care of something. And if something's not working, they're going to let you know. And if something is working, they're going to let you know. And I think, in a testament to you, like I loved just working with you because you had an ability to like direct the scene, and you know what you were going to see and you know what you wanted, but at the same time, you had to organically find it from the actors and you were aware of that and you made the space for that to happen. So I just trusted that I wasn't right for Matthew for the overall vision that has a lot of moving pieces so that didn't really upset me at all. I mean, I just thought it was funny, like getting the audition, like you're in it, but not for the guy. I'm like, for who? And they're like, John the Baptist. I was like, oh, wow. All right. Yeah. Cool.
So I'm curious about your just experience with the show. For a lot of the actors, this show now is in every country in the world. It's been growing exponentially. Tens of millions of people are now fans of it. And a lot of our actors who have social media accounts, they're hearing every day from someone who's just saying, you've impacted my life. Your performance changed me. You don't seem to be quite as active on social media. Have you experienced any of this yet? Have you started to experience people just appreciating your performance and appreciating the show and just letting you know that?
Yeah, I get like private DMs, and I'm not super active on social media. So yeah, I only post like once every month at most. But when I do, I see that obviously like this has touched people in like a very strong way. And when I see on the social media accounts for The Chosen, when a picture of John the Baptist shows up, a lot of people have this like really strong reaction, which is just I don't know. I feel very, very lucky to have been a part of it. And I also feel just, honored to have touched so many lives in such a positive way. Yeah. So it's kind of surreal. It's also interesting because I've done like just different projects. So when people reach out to me, I don't know who the people are, from what angle they're coming at me with. But when they come at me from the Chosen angle, it's usually always overwhelmingly positive, thankful, and just grateful that this project exists.
Yeah. So my final question just about the process of filming is, and the audience knows, as David, where John's story ends. It's a famous story. He gets beheaded. And in the scene that you performed with Jonathan at the end of episode 5, Jesus' character knows too. He knows your future, and he's playing that. Jonathan is very weighty in the scene, and he's communicating to you. And John the Baptist isn't really picking up on that. He's just like, I know you're going to warn me off. It happens all the time. I'm used to it. And he's optimistic. As an actor, do you have to just get rid of everything you know about the character and just try to be in the moment? Or is there any part of you that, knowing where this story goes, and John the Baptist does come back in season 3. He's actually in the first episode of season 3, just so you know, David. And actually has an impact on some other characters who end up joining Jesus. But does that come into play at all? Does knowing John's future just make things more sad for you? Or is it just no, in the moment, I forget all that, and it's just me and my fellow actor?
I mean, on one level, I feel like John is ready to die for it. You know, like I feel like that's what he believes in, and he believes in it so strongly that if death is, like, he doesn't believe death is going to happen in this case, but even if it did, I believe a part of him is like resolved to that. But I think also, like, you know, with the scene that you wrote, and I have the scripts in front of me and I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, I'm going to perform this, like, you know, tomorrow with Jonathan. It's never really how I thought it would go. It's always like, and that's usually the best thing. It kind of, you break into like, wow, like, oh, wow, I had no idea that this is how John would be feeling during this conversation. It's a revelation, and I think it should be. Can
you share briefly what one thing was different when you performed the scene? Just pick either one of those two main scenes, the one with Jonathan by the lake or the one where you say goodbye to him. That was notably different than what you expected?
I guess I expected to be a little bit more lost in the word theology of John's belief than in the relationship to Jesus. Yeah. That was a lot more interesting and profoundly stronger playing on screen than I expected. Yeah. And I think that felt true to the scene, and I probably, if there was a historical meeting between the two, that would have been true to that as well. Yeah. So I feel like that was a really pleasant surprise too, yeah. Because it again brought me out of like the head and the concepts that we all have as actors of what the scene, how it should go. And then you can just let go and you discover it, which again only occurs in the context of a director that is thinking about the things that is how the scene does need to move. Right. Like you do need to come from somewhere and go to somewhere. Yeah. And it just is great for an actor if you don't have to think about that, because right. you're not supposed to be controlling that really.
The analogy that I like to use as a director is, I believe in freedom for the actors, but if you put a big block of ice out in the middle of the ocean and there were sharks all around the block of ice, and you said to two people, go ahead and ice skate, and I just want you to feel totally free. Just ice skate all you want. Well, they would actually feel somewhat nervous, because if you get too close to the edge and you fall in, you're going to die. So you don't actually feel quite as free as you think, even though you've been given that permission. So what I like to look at it as, my job as a director is to put a wall around that block of ice that protects you from falling into the sharks. And then say, you have complete freedom. Do whatever you want. You just know that there's a wall here. And I find that it actually makes you feel more free, because you can now try flips, you can do spins, knowing that worst case scenario, there's a wall that's going to keep you from falling into the sharks anyway. And that actors actually feel more free and more cared for by having those guardrails and having someone that they know really worked hard to construct those guardrails and make them safe. That actually results in you feeling more freedom and more cared for than if I just said, do whatever you want. Let's just find it, and I'll know it's good when you know it's good. I feel like that actually causes more stress and lack of freedom.
Right. Yeah. I would agree with that. That's exactly right. Like I felt where the borders were of where we were playing, and then we were like free to just play now that those were there. Yeah. And I think John also is like kind of an outside of the box kind of character anyway. So I felt like if I went to like outside of there, well, it might work, and if not, you'll rein it in. We'll find out.
Well, when you say to him after you've teased him and after there's been some banter, when you say to him, "Look, I've been joking, but I want you to hear this. My heart is yours. My life is yours." It's just such a great moment. And that moment when you pause and we play that silence before you say, "Oh, it's real, isn't it?" It's just beautiful. You're just such a great actor to work with. and I'm really looking forward
Oh,
to.
great. Thank you.
We added more John the Baptist scenes because of you. We were just like, yeah, this is we need to spend more time with this guy. So I'm glad that you're here. One final thing before we go is just, do you have anything you'd like to say? I mean, right now there's literally tens of thousands of people who are watching live, and then hundreds of thousands who are going to see this over the course of the next few days. But is there anything you'd just like to say to the fans and to the Chosen family before we sign off?
Well, the Chosen family is one of the kindest crews I've ever worked with, like by far, and very accepting and very creative. And it's just so great to be part of a project that is an indie. My roots are in the indie film world, and so seeing like people that like really champion film in this way and tell the stories that they feel close to is like a thing that's very true to my heart. So I'm so happy to be and honored to be a part of this family. And to those watching at home, I love sharing this journey with you, and I hope I don't die too soon.
Well, thanks, David, and we'll talk again. But thank you so much for joining me for this conversation, and I will see you in season 3.
Awesome, thank you, Dallas.
I love David. He's just so real, so authentic, and he's a tremendous actor. Oh my goodness, I love those scenes in episode 5. It was great to bring him back. He's a bit of a fan favorite. So we've been getting questions from you, and we like to do this after every live stream, take questions when we have time. And so because we have time tonight, if you are staying with us or if you're watching this later, we're gonna make something of this. And so we've been looking at questions in the chat and finding a couple that I think are applicable. The first one that I want to read to you is from Colin in Texas, because it's related to David and it's related to John the Baptist. And he says, "Why call John the Baptist Creepy John? I don't like that. It feels disrespectful." And the reason we chose that question is because we've seen that comment a few times. And by the way, stick with us, because just after I go through a couple of these questions, Thomas Rhett Atkins, country megastar, conversation with him to talk about The Chosen. And then after that, I've got a sneak peek of episode 6. So stick around. We've seen this comment a few times from people who have said, "I'm offended that the show calls him Creepy John." First of all, the show isn't calling him Creepy John, but I'll get to that in a second. But they really don't like that anyone calls him Creepy John, or they think that disciples wouldn't have done that because they would have been more respectful, and they feel protective of John. Let's be very clear, okay? So first of all, yes, most of them would have been respectful to John the Baptist. He was a hero. But before they knew John, John had a bit of a wild reputation. And so if Simon in season 1 is frustrated and at his wit's end, and he's trying to save his family, and he's trying to provide, and he's trying to save his life in many ways, and John the Baptist says, "Yeah, I just saw the Messiah," that's not necessarily something that someone would immediately believe. And because John is known as eating bugs, which I know is controversial, whether he ate bugs or this certain pea, or he's wearing lamb skins or sheep skins or whatever, and he's out in the wilderness, he was pretty radical. And so there's a difference between a character in the show and the show. Okay, so we're not calling him Creepy John. Simon called him Creepy John. It's funny. It's lighthearted. And it's kind of appropriate for what you might think of John when you're frustrated at John. So we are not calling him Creepy John. We know he's a hero. We know he's great. It's just a joke. And for Simon, it was just a joke as well. He was just frustrated, and it's not how he really thinks of him long term. So there is a difference between a character and a show. I mean, obviously, if, eventually when we get to 12 disciples and Judas shows up, we're still figuring out how exactly we're going to do that. But when Judas shows up and he betrays Jesus, it's not like the show is betraying Jesus. It's just that character is. So try not to judge the show based on some of the characters' choices. Plus, a lot of people love it. Like Creepy John has become a little bit of a little folk hero. So Brad in Utah asks, "Isn't Jesus God? Why would he..." Well, I can answer that one quickly, yes. "Why would he say, quote, not the best analogy, unquote," and that's in that conversation with John when he says, maybe not the best analogy when he's talking about David. "And why would he be practicing his sermon?" Okay. So, yeah, we're talking about two moments where Jesus doesn't necessarily act like someone who knows everything, who's the ultimate God of the universe. because he makes what he acknowledges, he's kind of like, oh, maybe not the best analogy when he references David. And then later in the episode, near the end, he's rehearsing, coming up with certain ideas for his Sermon on the Mount. And he's like trying something and it's not working. And that doesn't necessarily fit the picture we often have of Jesus as kind of this, he's this deity that came to earth and he remained this kind of perfect deity who knew everyone's thoughts at all times and never tripped on a rock because he would have known where all the rocks were. Now, I do believe Jesus was perfect, of course, and I do believe Jesus is God. I do believe he's a member of the Godhead, the Trinity. But in our show, and in my perspective, I don't believe that Jesus going, oh, maybe that wasn't a bad analogy, or Jesus working through his sermon necessarily implies any kind of imperfection. It's actually a humanity. And Jesus says in the Gospels multiple times, there are things the Father knows that Jesus doesn't know. And he actually prays to his Father and encourages the disciples to pray to his Father. And when he's on the cross, he's upset and wondering if his Father has abandoned him. The night before, he's pleading with the Father to release him from this mission. So we portray Jesus as being on a mission from the Father, that the Father has certain knowledge. We believe that Jesus has access to that knowledge, probably almost 99.9% of the time. But we believe he was also human. So I don't believe that these moments are imperfections. I believe that they are human moments that don't deny his Godhead at all, but that he gave up some of that to become human on earth. Didn't give up... Well, this is a weird way to say it. I was going to say he didn't necessarily give up perfection, but maybe, I mean, he certainly was tempted. We know that he was tempted. We know that he experienced all that human beings experience. So I just don't believe that that violates his deity. I just believe that some of this he gave up to be a human being, and that doesn't mean that he was imperfect. So Julie from Florida just simply says, why the app? All right. So why the app? It's a fair question. Some people say, why don't you just leave all the episodes on YouTube? I'm going to make this very quick, and I want to get right into our conversation with Thomas Rhett Atkins and to our sneak peek of episode 6. But our show, in order to survive long term, has to have its own platform. This is true of every show in history. And every platform, Netflix, Disney, cable networks, and all that kind of stuff, typically when they share their shows on other platforms, if they do it, they charge money. So we don't really want to do that. We want to keep the show free, but our platform has to exist not only for this show, but for future shows. And Angel Studios, which is our distribution partner, has other shows, and so they're building their own platform. And so we really want you to get to the app, and we want you to be used to the app and familiar with the app so that if we're ever dropped from YouTube, which is certainly possible, we don't want to be in the hands or owned by anybody else. So we want to maintain all of our control. We want to maintain as much as possible, you having a completely interactive experience with us. And it's also the primary means that we're going to be able to generate all the income that we need to do this show. Because when people watch it in the app, they're far more likely to contribute. So, or pay it forward or buy gifts and whatnot. And so we like the fact that it's been, some of these episodes have been free on YouTube. We put season 1 for free on YouTube so that we could expand our reach. But now that those people have seen season 1, hopefully they're going to want to see future seasons. And we need them to be in the app and on our platform. So I know that if you're frustrated at times by the app, you've just got to remember, just click the help button. Click the help button or email support along the bottom of your screen, support@thechosen.tv, support@thechosen.tv. Their first response will be an auto response where they give you some frequently asked questions, give you the opportunity to solve it on your own. And then if that's not good enough, if that doesn't work, they are going to respond. They will get back to you. Don't worry. They will respond. We've got an amazing team. They are very, very helpful. Bear with us, but this is how things work. We like to do things not traditional. And so we're not always beholden by what everyone else has done. But as you know, the show is completely free. The app is completely free. It's the only app that you can just cast to your television without needing any kind of sign up. Just bear in mind, if we were on Netflix, you'd have to pay for a subscription, and then you'd be beholden to whatever other content that they have. Just like same thing with YouTube. We want to have our own platform where you can go and get all things chosen. Okay? So more to come about that. Thomas Rhett Atkins also didn't do this live, did this a little bit ago. I wanted to get his reactions on episode 5. He's a big Chosen super fan. If you're a Thomas Rhett Atkins fan, you're going to love this. And if you're not a Thomas Rhett Atkins fan, you're still going to love this. Fun conversation. Check this out with my new buddy, Thomas Rhett. All right. Well, Thomas or TR, you mentioned that that's how your family calls you. I'm not your family, so I'll wait just maybe a couple more days before I start calling you TR. But first things first, I want to
No worries.
apologize. You don't know this, but when I first discovered you, I read the last name Atkins, and I cannot get
Yeah.
Atkins out of my head no matter how many times I say it. It's supposed to be Akins, right? I assume.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I have called you Thomas Rhett Atkins 99 out of 100 times. And so I'm sorry, forgive me, but I just want to say that right off the bat. In fact, on the live stream that we're doing, I probably have called you Atkins again, and it's a disease, and I want to apologize. So I just want to get that right out of the way. But Thomas, Tom,
Hey, you're not
TR,
the first one, man.
you,
You're not the first one. Ever since I was playing Little League Baseball, they used to always call it Thomas Atkins up to the plate. Or, like, how do you spell your name? I'm like, well, there's no D or T in there. So it's just Akins. So it's been something I've gotten used to. So no harm, no foul,
yeah,
man. Thank you,
I do
though.
kind of blame the family name. I mean, I think Akins is too. Atkins is more common. I think you probably should have gone with Atkins. So I don't.
Yeah, you're probably
I
right.
don't blame myself totally. Can you,
You would tell my ancestors
yes.
that, you know?
Can you real quick just show the hats behind you, like the
Oh,
extent of
yeah.
them?
Yeah,
That's astonishing.
there's a lot.
So is that,
There's a lot
are
of
those hats that you've worn in concerts, or are those just, you just collect them?
No, literally, we had a show in Dallas, Texas last week, and it was the first time I'd ever bought my first cowboy hat that I wear. We just moved into a new house, and my wife wanted to make this wall full of hats. So we don't know where these hats have been. They could have been thrift store finds. They could have been something we found on Etsy. I don't really know, but this room down here is the hat wall.
Well,
So,
it does fit with one of your latest songs, "Country Again," is
Yeah.
been on repeat in our house for the last couple of weeks. I think
Oh, man, thank
that hat
you.
vibe goes with it, and I love it. I love that song. Well, I want to say real quick, last year my phone blew up on a midway through a day with about 18 different people all at the same time saying, Thomas Rhett Akins just said something about your show. Oh my gosh, they all freaked out. And so I just wanted to know, like, how did you discover The Chosen? What's your experience with the show? I mean, we really appreciated that you said something about it on your Instagram story, but how did that all come about?
Yeah, 100%, man. It's kind of become a staple in my house. It used to be whatever was new coming out on Netflix. My wife and I would just be like, hey, let's watch this new show, And we've been meeting with our small group now for a little over 2 years. It's been the longest small group we've ever been a part of, and every Monday night for 2 years. And so I would say it was about 9 months, 10 months ago, or however long ago it was when I started tweeting about The Chosen. There was a bunch of people in our small group that were talking about this show. And so Lauren and I one night were in bed, and we were just like, we should watch it, And from episode 1, I just remember I could not stop calling people and be like, hey, have you seen this show? Have you seen this show? And be like, no, what streaming service is it on? I was like, well, that's the interesting part, is that it's one of the most unique platforms to be able to, you can stream it to any device that you have, whether it's your Apple TV or your Roku or whatever, and it's free. And you can also pay forward. And when I saw that part, when you get on at the end of these shows, and you're like, hey, make sure you pay forward so we can keep this production going and other people across the world can discover this. And it just blew me away, man. The concept and now that you and I have gotten to become, even though we've never met before, I feel like we're brothers in some way. And man, I just have never. I've read the Bible my whole life, but I read it differently today. And I would say for sure because of the show, but also I feel like the Lord through the show has shown me, hey, man, I don't know that you've been reading the Bible with the same intensity that I wish you would, and being able to watch even just the characters that you guys got for this, it's just like every time Jesus or actor Jesus comes onto the screen, me and Lauren were talking the other night, it was like every time he comes on the screen, your body feels different. You know what I'm saying? It feels like Christ is there. It feels like Christ is in the room. And it's the first show I've ever watched about the Bible or Christ that has brought the scripture to so much life. You know what I mean? Like maybe it's wrong or maybe it's not, but every time I read the Bible and I read the words in red, I'm imagining Jesus on the Chosen screen, and it has literally taken my faith to such a new level. I mean, I can't explain it or describe it, man. But the Lord has done pretty incredible work through you guys, and I'm sure through millions of people that have gotten to watch bits and pieces of this show. And it's just been something that I've been super, super grateful for. So thank you for having the faith to dive into a series like this, because I've never seen anything quite like it.
That's awesome. I really appreciate that. It means a lot. The first time you and I ever talked, so I'd seen that you posted about it. I wanted to get in touch with you, reached out through, I think I connected through your manager, and we talked on the phone. And one of the first things you said to me was you really felt compelled to tell me to stay grounded. It was almost like you were saying, this is going to continue to get bigger. And considering your status, where you're at in the world, and how you've risen to the top of your game, did you experience something personally that compelled you to say this to me? Was there something that you've experienced in your career where when you kind of went from, maybe you were unknown to all of a sudden, you're one of the biggest things going? Was there something specific to your experience that you felt that compelled you to say to me, if the chosen continues to grow, just make sure you maintain the humility, the brokenness, the surrender? I'm just curious kind of where that came from.
Yeah, I've been doing this career now for 11 years, and I've gone through a lot of different phases in my life. My faith as a 21-year-old kid is actually kind of comical compared to what it is today. But I think that's how it works, right? Like, I think the Lord continues to show you new things and allows you to experience great success. He also allows you to experience major failure, at least in my line of work. And, even recently looking at a bunch of young kids who are just now starting this music career or whatever career they're starting. And when you start to gain success, I think I was reading this in this book, and it said, if the Lord has a plan for your life, how much more does the devil have a plan for your life? And so I think when you've been given a platform the way that you guys have for this show, it wouldn't be the craziest thing in the world to start to feel pride or start to feel like we have done this. You know what I'm saying? And I think for me, I've definitely been in those positions in my career where I'm like, yeah, God was there, but it really was me. It was me writing the songs. It was me playing the shows. And then after, millions of shows that we played, I walk off stage and I'm like, none of that was me. Like, God gave me a skill, yes. But there's been so many nights where my voice has been completely trashed or, just exhausted from being on the road, and somehow those shows just keep pulling through. And for too long, God was sort of the last person that I thanked for that. You know what I'm saying? I could say thanks to Claritin, or say thanks to some sort of allergy medication to get me through a show. But at the end of the day, man, God is going to allow these things to happen as they're supposed to. And I think when you start to lose start to lose a sense of where this began in the first place, it is the Lord. It's all the Lord. Everything that we do is because of Him. Every good thing is because of Him, And so I think that's kind of where that came from, just going, when you kind of watch yourself go, man, we don't really know what we're doing, but here we go. And then all of a sudden the world really catches on to that. Not only does that come this sense of like, man, we've really done something really awesome, but also comes a sense of like responsibility, to like continue to just tell the gospel, preach the gospel. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's what you guys have done so well. Is even watching the show, the stories I've read a million times, you're just like, but I've never seen it portrayed that way. You know what I mean? Because I'm one of those people that has never really dove into a lot of cultural context about the Bible. I've just kind of read it and been like, well, what do the footnotes say? But when you start to really dive into the context of like how they were living back then and what was actually going on, and like how intense the Pharisees were, and like to watch that be portrayed on screen, created by people that are doing their very best to be diligent in studying the Bible and understanding how that's supposed to come across. It was just like, I don't know. I think that was a roundabout way of answering your question, but I think I've just been in that position where, well, here's some songs, we'll see what happens. And then you start to watch success come, and it's like, who are you thanking for that? And how are you telling the world that, man, I'm so glad you like this, but glorify God because of this. Glorify God because of that smile on your face. It's not me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so that's been the story of the project all along, is if I ever start to stray from that kind of broken, arms outstretched, my wife calls them Red Sea moments. I've talked about this in other live streams where we're at the edge of the Red Sea and I normally say the Philistines, but that's wrong. It was the Egyptians are coming, and there's no place to go and there's no other option unless the waters part, and then God does this miracle. He brings us to that point constantly. It's like He's just not going to let me get ahead of myself or get proud of myself on any level. Absolutely. And so that's been a great thing. And I remember that stuck with me coming from you, especially someone who's reach the heights that you've reached. And I just thought, I feel like I'm already on that track, but I really, like you felt compelled to tell me that. I'm like, well, I need to really make sure I stay on that track. So I really appreciate that. On when you talk about the people in the show, the characters in the show, you know, our perspective is if you can see Jesus through the eyes of those who actually met him, you can be changed and impacted in the same way they were. And we have viewers all over the world who come from all different faith backgrounds or no faith backgrounds. Over half of our cast and crew aren't necessarily believers or don't have a traditional church background, but everyone seems to be able to identify with at least one of our main characters because all of our main characters come from different backgrounds. And I'm curious who you identify most with. Like when you watch the show and you see Jesus through the eyes of one of those people, is there someone who stood out to you as like, yeah, I'm on that guy's journey, whether it's Nicodemus, who's a lifelong follower of God but hasn't made it personal, or someone who's been through the ringer, like big time, like Mary Magdalene? Is there someone who you identified with more than most?
I feel like I'm a pretty good mixture between Thomas and Simon. A lot of people have told me my whole life, they're like, there's a reason that your name is Thomas. And even in my career, or even just through my whole life, I've been such a second guesser, such an overthinker, always just wondering like if the plan is like really right and do I believe that the plan is going to work. And just watching Thomas and in that one scene, I can't remember what episode it was, but when Jesus did turn the water to wine, just watching Thomas's face be like, how did I ever doubt this dude? You know? And so a mixture of him and Simon, because I'm also ready for the fight. You know what I'm saying? Like not like physically, but just like ready to go all in, ready to be kind of rebellious, ready to just like, if I believe in something, like, let's just go. You know what I mean? And I love that scene where Simon's walking with Jesus and he's like, hey, I feel like I should be the leader of this. Like, if there's anything else I can do, Jesus, just tell me. And Jesus is like, your skills are amazing, but we just don't need them right now. We will, but just be patient, you know? And the same with Simon the Zealot. He was just like, let me see your sword, you know, especially in this last episode. And Jesus takes it. He's like, man, this is impressive. Throws it in the water. He was like, I'm going to give you a different sword. You just got to be patient. And so I see myself a lot with like, if I hear a word from the Lord, I'm like ready to go do it right now. You know what I'm saying? Like if I hear God speak to me audibly, my first thought is like, let me go pray on that. Or not my first thought is like, let me go pray on that and figure it out. It's like, what do I got to go do? And when you start to realize that, like, you know, like in John the Baptist talking about like, my life is yours. You know what I'm saying? Like everything I do is for you. But you could tell that Jesus was still like, you just don't get it yet. You know what I'm saying? Like we are going to need you so bad, but like, let's be patient with this. And so I definitely identify with Thomas and Simon the most, just especially in those two.
So you brought up episode 5, which everyone has just seen. What thoughts on it? Did you like it? I mean, you and I have not talked about it. I sent it to you so you could see it, and I have not paid you anything. You are not required to say anything positive, but it's probably one of our most wild episodes we've ever done. It's got everything from a really sweet scene between Jesus and John the Baptist, and then there's a friggin' attack from a demoniac going after Mary and all that stuff. Yeah. Well, what were your thoughts?
I thought it was such an amazing episode. I mean, every episode brings out so many different unique pieces about the disciples in Christ alone. And I feel like episode 5 was one of the first times that you start to feel the weight of where Jesus is headed. You know, and it kind of started in episode 4 when Jesus is walking into the city gates and he sees those 3 men up on the cross, and he just stops there and looks at them. And dude, I mean, it was one of the most heavy scenes I've ever seen. I've never seen it portrayed like that, because you know that Jesus knows how he's going to die, you know, but when he witnesses other people be like, that's going to be my death, you know, but when my death is that way, the world gets to be free. The world gets to be free of sin. The world gets to be forgiven of that sin. And so moving from that point in episode 5, you start to really feel the weight of Christ being like, we're getting there. You know, even when John the Baptist and him are sitting down and John's like, man, this feels real now, doesn't it? And Jesus is like, yeah. And he's like, even though it's been real the whole time, you're starting to see things unfold, and you're starting to see Jesus really starting to be like, okay, maybe it's time to start speaking about the things that are to come, you know? And I think the scene with Mary hit me so hard, you know, when that demon-possessed man starts to walk out, and you start to realize what Mary has dealt with over the last however long of her life. And Jesus is like, but what, your name is Mary of Magdalene. Like I'm calling you by your name. And you can tell that she's trying to say the same thing to that man. And then when Jesus, wipes the demons out of this guy, I mean, it just hit her hard, it brought, like, you read those scriptures and you read that Jesus wiped out demonic possessed men and they went into swine and the swine went into the water. And you can read that and you're just like, okay, that's awesome. Jesus did that. But when you watch it portrayed on screen, you're like, wow, like that is heavy, I think that the best word I can use to describe this episode is just the fact that Jesus is now starting to realize that his march to the cross is beginning,
Well, and it's involving other people, meaning there's now a cost not only to him, which he knows, but there's a cost to John the Baptist, and that hits Jesus. He knows he knows what's going to happen, and he doesn't let John know, but he knows. Jesus knows, and it's an important. It has to happen. It's part of the plan, and it's hitting Mary. I think when Simon comes to Jesus at the end of the episode, and says, "She's gone. She's missing." Jesus knows that, but I think there's a piece we tried to capture of him going like, yeah, here we go. Like it's that piece of God that I really believe where he watches us descend sometimes, whether it's making bad choices in the case of Mary Magdalene or making good choices in the case of John the Baptist, but that's going to have a bad consequence where he's just going like, this is part of my plan. This is part of my story, but it's still painful sometimes. I know you feel this way, I'm sure, as a parent, where you have to let your kids go through something that's going to be painful. And you know it's good, you know it's right, you know where the end is, you know it's all going to work out, but it's still painful to watch. And I think that's part of this episode too, is Jesus going, there's collateral damage here. And it's not easy.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to watch the humanness of Jesus, like especially in the last scene when he's standing beside the lake and he's practicing his sermon, he's like, salt cannot, I don't know, if it loses its saltiness, and you're sitting there going like, how many times have I done that? Like tried to rehearse for something and I know that that's not right. And you're like, but you're God. You know what I'm saying? Like you're God, but you're fully man. And I just thought it was portrayed so well. And, like you said, man, and watching Jesus watch John the Baptist leave to go, confront Herod, it's just like, man, I know, like you said, it's part of the plan. But at the end of the day, like once this is finished, we all have a promise of eternity, and it's just, when you brought up the kid factor of it, it's just like, you realize when your kids are kind of doing something and you're just like, you know what, I might need to just let you go through this, so that we can wind up victorious on the other side of it. And so, man, I just thought it was such a heavy episode and definitely one of my favorite episodes, just to kind of just capture the humanness of Christ and how he felt for his disciples, knowing how they felt. And John saying, can we just hurry this thing up? And Jesus like, it's not time yet. It's coming, but it's just not time. And you could tell that Jesus like wants to just be like, hey, this is how this is all going to go. You know what I'm saying? But I feel like if he tells them that, it might just mess with their brain so hard to be like, well, what are we doing? But man, I love this episode.
Good. Yeah, it is a heavy one. We don't always wrap everything into a nice bow. These episodes are part of a larger story, so sometimes it's important to think of an episode as part of a larger whole as opposed to its own thing. So I'm going to let you go here in just a second, but I just want to close with what you're up to. What's the current thing? What should the chosen family, the chosen army, what should they look for? Where should they go to find the latest thing you're doing?
We're actually going on tour, which is really nice. I didn't know that we were ever going to be able to do that again. But we're going on tour in August. We end in October. These are kind of rescheduled dates from last year. So I think we're playing about 25, 26 shows this year. And just really just getting back up into rehearsal with the band and getting to be face-to-face with them. And we just dropped a record on April the 30th called Country Again, Side A. If you haven't checked it out, you should. And have Side B coming later on this year. So really excited.
It really is great. I'm not just saying that. My son, Sam, he's kind of the usually the entry point into new music in the family, and he said, like, my son Sam was like, great, this new album is great. So we've all been listening to it, and it really is terrific. So thank you so much. I'm going to get back into my live stream, but I really appreciate you coming on and being a friend of the show, and we'll for sure talk more.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dallas. Appreciate you, man.
Chosen, making fans all over the world of all stripes. And I'm glad you were able to hear from Thomas. We'll do that now every now and then after each episode, where you'll hear from one of our actors and then hear from one of our big fans. And we'll mix things up a little bit. But I just wanted you to meet Thomas. I've been wanting him to kind of come on. He's been saying for months, like, how can I help? How do I get involved? And I thought, you know what? He'd be a great guest. He'd be a great guest, not a great guest. He'd be a great guest for post-show analysis, because he's a really smart guy. So I hope you appreciated that. I wanted to read this to you briefly, and we're going to get to the sneak peek of episode 6 in just a moment. But this is what we're talking about when we talk about Come and See. Okay? Come and See is the heartbeat of this whole project. Even when you're paying it forward, which is a financial means of purchasing the show for other people so that they can have it free. That's a form of come and see. It really starts with this phrase, come and see. Being a Philip, being someone who goes to your friends or goes to your family or even sometimes goes to strangers and says, you've got to see this. That's what this is all about. And I wanted you to see how this works. Got this note from Kabina. Says, I was invited to come and see this show a while back. But then I was a little bit skeptical because of how sometimes shows water it down and all, but I'm misreading this here, or there's a little bit of a grammar problem here, but let me figure that out. How many sometimes water it down and all. But then I was pressed on again. See, people pushed her again. She heard about it from other people as well. You never know. Mention it to someone, don't pester them, but you now got to remember that other people will talk to them as well. And over the course of time, when multiple people convince someone to finally watch it, they will. So I went forward to check out the first episode, and I couldn't believe it. I found myself speaking in the Spirit, going to the very end of the first episode. It has been really touching, honestly. That's one thing, by the way, real quick. When you tell people to watch it, I know that some people, their expectations are really upended when they watch episode 1 of season 1 because it's such a unique experience. I mean, episode 1, when people look back on it, ends up being one of their top 2 or 3 favorite episodes. But when they're first watching it, they don't know the characters yet. They don't know where it's going. They don't know where the story is. They don't know who these people are. They keep trying to connect it to a Bible verse, and there's no Bible verses to connect it to. Where's Jesus? So their expectations are a little bit upended. You just got to tell them, don't try to talk them through the entire thing. They can watch it like any other show. Every show that you watch, you don't know the characters yet. It takes you a bit. But you can just say to them, make sure you watch the entire episode. Just that can be kind of your thing. Come and see, just watch all the way to the end. Make sure you don't miss the end of episode 1. And typically that's plenty for them to keep going because then things start to all make sense. It's been really touching, honestly, and I think the Holy Spirit led me to an understanding in the episode called Indescribable Compassion. That was episode 6 of season 1. God said, it doesn't matter how shattered or how low your life is. If you have an encounter with God, your life will have a total turnaround. And I am a testimony to that as he changed my life and gave me a purpose. Here's where you come in. I want to thank all those who encouraged me to come and see. All of those. Remember, it's more than one person. And to those who paid for those who weren't able to pay to watch like me, thank you very much for the kind gesture. That's you. You are telling people to come and see. And if you don't have the finances to pay it forward so that other people can watch it for free, that's fine. Watch the show for free, enjoy it. Just keep telling people to come and see. But if you are paying it forward, also, you are allowing us to finance future episodes and seasons. You are allowing people like that to have that story. I mean it every time I say it. We don't do this without you. Okay? I want you to remember that having us be the freedom that we have to do this for free, to give it to churches and ministries and to shelters and stuff like that. We're just like, we heard a story earlier about someone whose father is in a alcoholic, kind of a PTSD, kind of alcoholic recovery center. And he's spreading the word. He's telling people to come and see about the project. And so we're going to send him free a bunch of DVDs and a bunch of books to give to the other people in the treatment center. And I've done movies in the past, and whenever I've wanted to do something like that, I've had to get permission from the studio, and normally they require you to charge. We control all this. And because of you, we're able to just do this and give those things away for free and spread the word so we can reach 1 billion people. And the only way to reach 1 billion people is if it's free. Thank you for providing your loaves and fish. We're going to provide our loaves and fish, and together we're going to watch God feed the 5,000. I'm not going to come and talk to you after the sneak peek of episode 6. Here's a little mini trailer. It's less than a minute long of episode 6. Just going to give you a little taste of where episode 5 leaves off and where we go into episode 6. Little images, little moments here and there that you're going to get a chance to see of what's coming. Can't wait for you to see it. Can't wait for you to see where this story goes. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.
If we split up today, we'll be able to cover more ground.
We're not splitting up.
It would be more logical.
Jesus wants you back in one piece.
This is literally our last meal. These lentils.
She could be dead or dying in a ditch somewhere.
What if you were cut off from Jesus by something in your past? Wouldn't you want help getting back to him as soon as possible?
Have you noticed that no matter where we go recently, we are more and more misunderstood?
Definitely.
It's hopeless.
No. It's just getting started.
John the Baptizer was taken into custody.